Define to me the word linear. Arranged in or extending along a straight or nearly straight line. Some context would be linear movement. Number 2, progressing from one stage to another in a single series of steps, or sequential. Some context would be a linear narrative. I think the word linear says a lot about what Metroid Fusion is as an entire experience. Specifically the narrative part, I can count on one hand how many times I found myself off the beaten path, really exploring without any sort of rhyme or reason. Fusion was definitely the first of its kind in the Metroid universe in the sense that because of narrative purposes, the player is kind of guided from point A to point Z. Now, normally that would be a soul-crushing experience for me because I cannot fucking stand the linear framework in a game that was not necessarily designed for it. But Fusion pulls it off in such a way that it directly ties into the story about the X-Parasites and the Federation, so it didn't really get under my skin all that much. Almost exclusively from start to finish, I had a clear goal and a destination, so as a result, I typically knew exactly where to go and what to do. There was no wandering around with my thumb up my ass. But believe it or not, that's actually a rather common criticism for this game. It's not one that I share in because Fusion is deliberately linear for a number of reasons, but it is definitely a common complaint. Now, criticism. You're not going to hear much of that from me in this video because Metroid Fusion is fucking awesome. It's an oiled machine, one that does its job without a hitch. I do have a few issues here and there, but they're inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, and a large chunk of those revolve around how the game tends to lock you out of either previous or upcoming zones until you hit a trigger. But again, as I said, that's not really worth bitching about. At its core, Metroid Fusion is solid and smooth. It runs. Gameplay is fun, and while I'm disappointed with how it fails to challenge the player, I am impressed with everything that it succeeds at. All the building blocks of a strong foundation are there, and I think that at the absolute worst, Fusion is a great game that might not try hard enough in a few different instances, but at best, I'd say it's even fantastic and even succeeds at 99% of all the things that make Metroid great to begin with. Unfortunately, as is tradition in older Metroid games, the space jump still kind of fucking sucks. It's another one of those frame-perfect items that I can't ever seem to get the timing on, and it drives me goddamn insane. I swear to God, I will never get this right. I think while it is safe to say that Fusion may be one of the brighter games in terms of its color palettes and its sprite work, it is most definitely one of the darkest in terms of its tone, at least for when it was released, which was 2002. And for me, that's really communicated almost immediately at the title screen, much like with Super Metroid. The sound system built into the GBA doesn't do shit for justice in terms of this soundtrack, but the music is still just as foreboding and taunting as it ever was before. That is the sound of my happiness because this is just so fucking cool. I am so ready to get this started. Press start, let's fucking go! I am so fucking hyped for this, oh my god. So how about I stop yelling and maybe we talk about this a little bit. Samus was acting as a bodyguard for the BSL research team on SR-388 when she was attacked by an unknown organism, something that we now know as the Parasite X. She was completely unaware of her condition until she passed out in her ship en route back to the station, where she ultimately collided with an asteroid, which is metal as fuck, just so we're clear. Biologic recovered her escape pod and shipped her off to Federation HQ, but before they even arrived, Samus was already critical. Her power suit had been corrupted by the X and parts of it had to be surgically removed, hence the new suit. Now as for the X and her central nervous system, they were dug in too deep to be removed without potentially killing her. That is, of course, until someone came up with the bright idea of using Metroid cells in the form of a vaccine, and it worked like a charm. The Metroid cells completely eradicated all of the X in her central nervous system, and that's because the Metroids were the sole predators of the X. Now, this is the part where Samus should have thanked her late Metroid foster kid, but she doesn't have time for that right now. See, there's been an explosion on the PSL, so the Federation looks to Samus Aran, once again, now the only person in the known universe immune to the X-Parasites. And I mean that literally, the only person that exists who cannot be infected by the X. With that bit of context, ponder this. She's already taken on different Chozo traits, given her strength and her physical prowess, but now she's even adopting Metroid traits too, like a vulnerability to extreme cold. And another one that I'll talk about when I finally make it to Metroid Dread. She even said it herself. One life ended and she was reborn as something new. And that's what I like to call context, because now you know why the game's called Metroid Fusion. Fusion doesn't waste any time getting started. Samus arrives on the BSL in a shiny new ship and a brand new suit with a bottle of whoop-ass ready to uncork on anything and everything at any given moment. I will say that I am slightly let down by the lack of detail in the opening zone. Establishing a sense of atmosphere from the get-go is a strong way to kickstart your game and get the player really invested and immersed in the world. And I don't know why I expected more, but for whatever reason, I just kinda did. There is a staggeringly large amount to talk about in the first half of this game. I've already mentioned just how linear it can be, and as I've said, that's not necessarily a complaint, but I do still feel like I might be underselling it. When I say that the first half of this game basically plays itself, that's actually not a joke. While I might normally bitch and moan about that, it does really help give the game a sense of pacing and allows for narrative emphasis, which is something that previous games didn't really focus on all that much, which in turn provides an interesting amount of depth to the events that take place on this space station. To give you a little example, Adam suggests that I start my investigation by heading to the quarantine bay, but when I get there, it's completely empty. There's nothing here but silence. Silence and a single hornode. So you do what any player would normally do. You see the thing, shoot the thing, get the thing, and move on. And without any context, this scene has zero meaning. But it's a callback. You see, the hornode that attacked Samus in the beginning was actually an X in disguise, and while this hornode in the quarantine bay can't be the same exact X that infected her, the presence of this parasite heavily implies just how much danger Samus, and in turn, the entire galaxy, is actually in. The Federation had the creatures they captured on SR-388 shipped off to the BSL, along with the scuffed up parts of Samus's power suit. So she's in for one hell of a ride today, because not only can the X reproduce faster than a dozen fucking rabbits at an orgy, but they can mimic legitimately almost anyone and anything, and they do so perfectly. In other words, she lucked her way out of the goddamn frying pan and fell face first into the boiling fucking water. And that's the kind of wordless storytelling that I genuinely love, because it depends entirely on the player's attention span and their ability to interpret what they're seeing. It is fucking wonderful. But anyway, now that this hornode is dead, I should probably stop on by the nav room and see what Adam's been up to since I've been gone. So all the extra gathering in a single confined space, huh? Pretty sure I can take care of that. Gonna need some weapons, though. This power beam kinda sucks, if I'm being honest. As is customary in Metroid, the first upgrade you get is your missile. You don't really find them as much as you do download them because HQ is sending you weapons data. Either way, they blow things up well enough, that's all that's important. On the topic of upgrades, the path to the first boss leads you past an E-tank and 2 missile packs. The first 2 are literally impossible to miss unless you don't have eyes. And the other one is under a beam block in an empty room just before the boss arena. Now, bosses. Almost all of them in Fusion are pushovers. There's only like 2 in the game I can think of that are actually hard, quote unquote, and by hard I mean I died more than 3 times. Arachnus is not one of those bosses. Hey, wait a minute, what the fuck? Is that my morph ball? Though 90% of these bosses are just glorified X clones that don't really know how to handle my sass, I genuinely admire the diversity in boss design. All of them are extremely different, and they typically represent the sector that they guard in one form or another. The design of each boss and their attacks was just A+. Now this right here is called a Core X. Basically, every boss turns into one of these, and the only time they're even remotely a threat is when they're using beam weapons. And that's because they shoot at you in the exact same frame that they take damage, so my advice would be to not suck at dodging. That's what I thought you were guarding. Gotta stop on by the nav room real quick and see what Adam wants, since I'm not allowed to play unsupervised until about 3 hours in. Ah, I see. Okay. So Sector 1 is a simulation of SR-388. That seems oddly specific for no real reason. I really hope the Federation isn't doing anything illegal here. Like, I don't know, maybe breeding Metroids. I really hate to have to blow this place the fuck up. This elevator's a one-time deal. You're gonna be stuck down there for the first half of this game. Like I said, you're gonna be stuck down there for a while, and honestly, it's probably better that way. If anything, the linearity of Fusion made the game more accessible to newer players who weren't quite accustomed to the labyrinth-esque persona that Metroidvania had long since adopted. But it wasn't without a little bit of a cost. As many favors as that linearity did, like making it easier to get into and arguably more enjoyable with a higher replay value, I do feel like it also created a bit of a gameplay loop that came off as, well, for the time, out of place, in a sense that I never really felt like I was exploring or discovering anything, at least not by my own choice. I felt, as with any other linear game, that I was being led by the nose to a predetermined location, and that's because the progression path is essentially just copied and pasted. And on paper, it makes sense. I mean, if it's not broken, there's no need to fix it, right? Nav room, save room, recharge room, security room, kill a boss, get an upgrade, and then get stuck for a little while you're looking for the hidden path out. That's how basically every sector in this game functions. I mean, sure, it does feel like Metroid, but I'm not doing this on my own volition. I'm doing this because I don't have any other choice. It's just strange. Typically, you can go backward if you want, but there's no reason to do that because you can't move forward until you complete the sector that you're in. And even if you did, the progression path takes you through each of these sectors twice anyway. You explore the upper portion first and then the underbelly the second time through. And by the time you're done, there's not much left to really go back and look for, save for maybe a few expansions behind power blocks or speed blocks. As I said though, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just strange and it felt a little bit restricting. In Sector 1, the main goal is to clean up the atmospheric stabilizers, which is easy. All you gotta do is just blast the X inside with missiles. You're also looking for a new weapon, guarded by a boss who is, yet again, a pushover. The charge beam is great. It increases the width of the beam and it also lets you charge your shots. Who'd have thought it? Also, there's a missile tank up here. I do appreciate the insight we get concerning the depth of Samus as a character. Seeing her monologuing is an extremely rare thing, but I do find it a bit ironic that a GBA card from 2002 was able to paint a better picture of Samus as an individual with thoughts and feelings better than Other M ever could have. Because that game and the Jesus Christ, that horrible fucking voice.
Baby.
Okay, that's enough of that. As soon as you get to Sector 2, you want to find that data room. This takes care of all the blue hatches all throughout the station, which means now you can finally go get those morph ball bombs that you've been waiting for, except you can't bomb jump in Fusion, so what's the point of even living anymore? If there's one thing I was fucking pissed about, it's the bomb jumping. Or the lack thereof. I already knew that I couldn't do it. I just had to try, so I could be disappointed, you know? Also, there's a missile pack just outside the data room where you downloaded the bombs. You'll notice that upgrades in Fusion are basically everywhere, and most of them are just kinda poorly hidden. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I was a bit disappointed with how easily I was finding some of them. And then we've got Zazabi. He's just as much of a pushover as every other boss in this game so far, but for whatever reason, he's just a fun fight. Call me crazy, but I actually look forward to this boss battle. Not really sure why. All you gotta do is just jam a couple dozen missiles up his ass every time he jumps and eventually he dies. His core X form isn't any stronger either. He just kinda zooms around everywhere. Very interesting design, fun execution, but again, painfully easy. I'm really hoping that this is not a trend for the rest of the game. He does drop the high jump and the spring ball for your troubles, though. High jump in Fusion is great. I don't feel like I'm constantly banging my head on the fucking ceiling, so I literally have nothing to complain about. And the spring ball is great because bombs take a year and a half to blow up. Also, did I mention SAX is looking for you now and she brought a bigger bottle of whoop ass than you could ever dream of carrying? So yeah, that's a constant looming terror cloud over your head until the game's over. Unfortunately, I was a little bit disappointed with it. It doesn't happen very often. It felt like a bit of a missed opportunity to me. Anyway, she doesn't pop back up for a while. Let's go see what Sector 4 is all about. Alright, so if I touch the water, I get electrocuted. Bet, I'm in. Who wants a toaster bath? From my perspective, Sector 4 is the pinnacle of level design in Metroid Fusion. There are plenty of aquatic-based environments in the Metroid universe, plenty of which Samus explores and then promptly explodes, but until we got Metroid Dread, none of them had ever looked like this. The machinery and the water go hand in hand with one another, and I really feel like it adds a lot to the world building. This is one of those places that really sticks out in my memory, and it was about this point that the atmosphere Fusion had been trying to create this entire time really started to hit me. It's like exploring an abandoned building, except that building is actually an ocean. I'm actually gonna miss this place when I finally have to leave. The color palettes are extremely diverse, and the aquatic environment of Sector 4 is perfect. Everything is very brightly colored, and each shade on screen contrasts with the others behind it, giving the player the sense that this world has depth and layers to it. It's just smoke and mirrors with well-designed sprites and wisely chosen colors, but it is really pretty. There are loads of upgrades here, kind of like this missile tank. Don't ask me why I jumped, because I have no fucking clue. There's also another E-tank up here, but you don't really need it because this game is vehemently fucking easy. So if you're a goddamn moron like I am, you'll get to this dead end and then you'll climb up and then hit another dead end and you'll be like, what the fuck, pitfall block? Why are you cucking me? Just save yourself the trouble. These are bomb blocks and I should have been able to tell just by looking at them. I don't know why it took me a half an hour to figure that out. So you enter the boss room and avoid the painfully obvious destructible blocks. Yes, we all know that those are destructible blocks. You suck at hiding them, Fusion. Stop trying. And then Saris shows up out of nowhere. In my opinion, Saris is the first boss that might give you just a crumb of trouble because he is extremely fast and he's gonna try and knock you into the water, but he's also really weak. Wait for him to fly at you and then blast his mouth with a charge beam and jump out of the way. His Core X is slightly more of a threat because if it knocks you in the water, you're basically fucked. It doesn't move quite as fast, but it is temporarily invincible for a brief moment every time you deal damage to it. However, once you finally beat its ass through and through, you're rewarded with the speed boost, and that's your ticket out of here. Wait, hold up, wait a second. You mean to tell me those things were there the whole fucking time? God damn, I really want this missile expansion, but I've never known how to get it. Okay, you know what? Fuck this, I don't care anymore. Before we can leave, we gotta hit the pump to lower the water. Oh shit! And once you're done with that, time to head back to the nav room and see how Daddy Adam's doing. I'm sure he's so lonely without me. Super missiles, huh? Yeah, I agree, I do need those. For peaceful reasons, of course. Yeah, I bet you don't want me to open up level 4 locks, and I know for a fact you guys are doing some illegal shit in there, I think. My favorite part of this zone is that I immediately got to put the speed booster to use. Oh shit! I feel like the speed booster is implemented in this game far better than it ever was before. It's just something that triggers on its own, no player input required. Back here's the security room for this area so you can unlock new hatches, again, with lots of goodies behind them too. Sector 3 may come off as a bit more confusing than previous areas simply because it kind of requires you to use some of your newer abilities that you probably haven't really thought of using yet, like the booster blocks here in the beginning. There's a lot of hidden blocks that you just kind of have to know where they are beforehand because telling you ruins the fun of it. That's what I meant when I said you kind of got to get stuck for a little bit before you can move on. Like this speed booster section right here. God damn it. Alright, I'm gonna try that one again. There we go, that's what I was talking about. Much like Sector 4, there are upgrades everywhere, you just kinda gotta know where to look. Kinda like this missile tank here. Believe it or not, this is actually part of the main progression. It's the only way to get around the obstruction directly above you. I've noticed the monsters in here tend to hit a lot harder. They are just relentlessly fucking me, it seems like, and I just can't seem to... I've noticed the monsters in here tend to hit a lot harder. They are just relentlessly fucking me, it seems like. I've played enough of this game over the course of my life to know how to handle them, but Jesus Christ, 50 health per hit? I could really go for a Various suit right about now. Just up here's the data room. It's time to download those super missiles and put them to use, because we got a boss coming up. I really do like the security bot's introduction. There is no elaborate entrance. You can hear him banging on the data room door thinking that you're in there, and once you get close enough to him, he just turns around and starts trying to mercilessly pound you. It is, however, again, extremely easy. Just hold on to the bars and fire missiles at his core before he drops his bombs. One of the easiest bosses yet, though his attacks can be a pain to avoid. Security bot might be the only boss in the game that doesn't turn into a Core X once you beat his ass. It's a bit of a shame too, because I could really use whatever the fuck that is. Finally, once you hit him enough times, he runs away like a little bitch. Jesus Christ. Finally. Now, there is an E-tank on the way out, one that you'll probably want to get. Alright, I got what I came for. Time to go see what Daddy Adam wants. I don't have a Varia suit yet, so environments with extreme temperatures are still off limits for the moment, but that's okay because now I'm headed to Sector 6, which is dark and damp, or at least that's how it's always appeared in my head. That's where my new suit is, so that's where I'm going. You know, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm getting stronger, making good progress. I don't have a reason to completely obliterate this station by smashing it into a planet. I feel great. You motherfuckers! I knew you were doing illegal shit down here! I feel like now is the best time to bring this up, given the fact that I'm approaching the halfway point of this game. At first, the linearity of Metroid Fusion felt a bit kinda off-color to me, but by the time I made it to NOC, I wasn't really feeling that anywhere near as much as I was in the beginning. Even though it does still feel a bit awkward compared to what I'm used to, it was about this time I started noticing that I actually kinda liked the linearity. There's nothing wrong with the guided experience, and to a degree, that's kinda what Fusion is, but it does so in such a way as to where it doesn't come off as intrusive or disruptive to the player experience, and I think that's worth genuine praise on a legitimate level. Also, Sector 6 sucks, mostly because of these fucking pricks. Shit! God damn it! Fuck, I hate these things. You motherfucker! I'm on the lookout for some new expansions right about now. I feel like I don't have enough missiles. Maybe there's some in here. Nope. Originally, I was gonna call him Freeze-X, but that just kinda sounds like I'm saying free sex, and, well, yeah. Jay don't play that way. On the real, though, Sector 6 isn't bad at all. There's a lot of tension, what with the blue X floating around seemingly everywhere, and they 100% can and will freeze your goddamn dick off if you're dumb enough to let it happen. It adds a fair amount of threat to these monsters that you become so familiar with while playing, and it's a nice change of pace. Now, threats. Pardon me while I hide here like a little bitch. Don't worry, next time she is far less oblivious. You know, the sector boss isn't that much of a threat either. Again, with the trend of weak bosses, let the charge beam and the super missiles carry you to victory. If I've noticed anything wrong, quote-unquote, with this game, it's that, unfortunately, it doesn't really try to challenge the player until the very end, which is a bit of a letdown. Thankfully, this bad boy drops a Varia suit, so I'm not gonna complain. Now I'm off to go pick up the ice missiles, which I feel like is a very good upgrade, if for nothing else because it doubles as an ice beam. And it's picked up about halfway through the game, so there's still plenty of time to actually use it and enjoy it. Sector 5, or Arc, rather, is again one of the more interesting zones just because it feels so brightly colored and vibrant. That is of course my personal opinion, but it is visually stimulating in a sense that it's enjoyable to see or look at because of how all these different shades of blue pop out on screen without blending together to create a jumbled sprite mess. I enjoy this zone because of the atmosphere. I don't just believe that this sector is locked at a perpetual sub-zero temperature because blue. It's the wildlife here and the sounds that they make, the way that the environment is designed. I enjoy it because it's convincing. As with every sector, gotta hit up that security room before anything else. And now 75% of the game's doors are open to you. Still no reason to backtrack, seeing as this game tends to lock you out of certain areas because reasons. It's not really a game changer, it's just one of those things you kinda gotta get used to while playing. Fusion is 100% about forward momentum. Of course, once you find the data room, you find your ice missiles. These things are wonderful, and trust me, you're gonna need them. But before anything else, I should probably stop at a nav room. I imagine Adam's probably having a freak out. What the fuck? I leave you alone for 5 minutes. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, what? Nah, fuck that. Nobody blows this place the fuck up but me. Well, at least I got something out of all of this that was worth it. Thankfully, that's all over now, though. Time to head back to Adam and see what he's got to say about all this. So apparently, I am so much of a threat to the X that they're ignoring their basic survival instincts just to make sure that I don't make it out of here alive. They don't care if it completely annihilates them. They just want me dead. Joke's on them, though. I'm a millennial. I want me dead, too. Time to take a break from all the morbid shit, though. Adam detected some life signs on the main deck. Maybe there's survivors. Huh. Never mind. Just the animals I neglected to save on Zebus. Funny I'd run into him here, of all places. Apparently I'm not the only one thinking that either. Unfortunately, this is where I feel like the game's linearity begins to leave a somewhat sour taste in my mouth. It's not that I don't appreciate the way that the game guides you from point A to point B, I just kind of imagined that after X amount of time, it'll let go of the reins and take off the training wheels. But it just kind of hadn't done that yet. You end up heading back to Sector 5 again to pick up the power bombs, which is great, because power bombs are great. Still just a screen clear, not much use for them outside of that, but it's a nice thing to have for exploring. I just feel like I would have been a little happier if I wasn't still being kept on a leash. And this isn't the last sector that you're gonna revisit either. This is how it goes for the remainder of the game. It's basically just one giant circle. It's a blast to play, don't get me wrong. I just feel like because I'm essentially on a rail, I haven't really encountered as many moments that make me go, holy shit. We did, however, get this. This makes me happy. You're basically forced into a chase scene that I 100% knew was coming because it left permanent psychological damage on me the first time I experienced it when I was like 11. I think that's called trauma bonding. For the record, that ice beam fucking hurts. The only shitty part is that this only lasts for a single room. As I said earlier, I feel like Fusion didn't really try hard enough in what I would consider to be some of the more important parts of the game. But hey, at least I got a power bomb expansion out of it. I gotta head back to my ship, though. Adam has something he wants to show me, and now the power's out. Great. I suppose I should have seen this coming, though, given that the station is literally falling apart around me, it seems like. And to top it off, Ridley's here! I'm sure that's gonna be a pain in the ass later. I ended up circling back around because apparently Adam felt the need to tell me face to face that he let a bunch of animals on my ship. Pretty sure a simple phone call would have worked. That's basically what you've been doing this entire time, but whatever. I digress, though. This starts my favorite part of Metroid Fusion because we're finally going up against some space pirates. This zone is just dark and eerie, and I've always felt that this zone was the restricted area of the game, if you will. Rolling through the vents and really digging deep into the space station. This was yet another highlight of this entire game for me. Also, space pirates. Lots and lots of space pirates. Of course, it doesn't take long for shit to hit the fan, though. Why would it? I'm going after the space jump boots, and there's one hell of a boss between me and them. Meet Yakuza. He's the biggest goddamn pain in the ass in this entire game. This was like walking barefoot through a field of burning fucking Legos. Mostly because I can't ever seem to avoid that fucking grab attack. Yakuza has 3 phases. First, the spider phase, which you can see demonstrated on screen as he clearly fucks me up. And then he's got the space jump phase, where he fucks me up even more. And then his Core X, which for me was an earth-shattering fucking problem. I don't know if this boss is just a gauntlet or I just fucking suck. Both are a possibility, but by the time I made it to the Core X, all my energy was nearly drained. Yakuza killed me dozens of times. All that lack of challenge I'd been bitching about finally managed to catch up with me. He is, however, not invincible, and when you finally manage to just kick the shit out of this motherfucker, God, does it just feel good. Your efforts are rewarded with the screw attack. I fucking hate it because it feels the exact same way that it did in Super Metroid, and as a result, I am pissed. Gripes aside though, I absolutely love the fight against Yakuza. It's a well-designed boss, and the first in the game to legitimately challenge me. The only thing I regret is that this boss gave me an unwanted prostate exam before I had a chance to react to it. Getting back on schedule though, we gotta get that auxiliary power turned back on, that way I don't suffocate up here. Unfortunately, the game's mostly just kind of busy work at this point. Oh shit, time to go! You're not catching me this time, motherfucker, you gotta be quicker than that! Oh, I'm gonna fucking die! Not like this! Unfortunately, the game's mostly just busy work at this point. Thankfully, though, I do know how to deal with this. Just put a bomb right here and then crawl up into this hole, all the way to the back. You motherfucker! I've found my revisiting of Metroid Fusion fascinating up to this point. There isn't really anything for me to legitimately complain about, especially now that the game is officially out of tricks and traps. There's not really much else that it can hide from you at this point because by now you've already grown to understand all of its quirks. I haven't really had to look, quote-unquote, for anything in this game, nothing except for expansions, and even then, the ones I managed to find were either sitting out in the open or they were hidden behind a painfully obvious breakable block. The same goes for the next boss, Notori. I didn't look for this. The level design was just so fucking perfect that I naturally went the right direction without even realizing it. And it was exactly the same with Nightmare X and the revisit of Sector 5. I just kinda went, and I just so happened to go straight there without skipping a beat or ever taking a wrong turn. By the way, he also drops the gravity suit when you finally kill him. He is also 100% a prick. There is a skill to designing a world, especially with sprites as opposed to three-dimensional models, and it takes a lot of time and effort to ensure that a game world that's built to resemble a maze doesn't actually feel like a maze. Up to this point, you have been led by the nose from one goal to another like a dog on a leash, and based on my experience so far, I would go far enough to say that the linearity of this game, until now, was the wiser choice for NRD to take. It's possible that the intended linearity is a direct result of its level design, or perhaps the level design is a direct result of the intended linearity that I genuinely feel was conceptualized during pre-production. This game is designed far too perfectly for it to have been shaken up and reworked halfway through development. I'll never really know for sure, but I know for certain that this game directly benefited from both of those key aspects working together to create a seamless and sequential experience, one that was unlike any other Metroid game that we'd gotten up to that point. I think it was deliberately designed in such a way as to avoid being the confusing maze of catacombs and caves that I'm familiar with, so the player would never actually feel lost, not until the developers wanted you to feel that way. And the end result was great. Having not played this anywhere near as much as I've played Super Metroid or the Prime trilogy, I essentially just kind of walked on through this. I think the only time I actually legitimately got lost, if you will, was the revisit to Sector 4, which isn't so much a revisit as much as it is its own separate entity in and of itself. And it is absolutely wonderful. Listen to this music. This is fucking awesome. I really wish the other sectors had this much diversity between their layers. They're all great, but when I think of Metroid Fusion, I think of the SAX and the Sector 4 Underzone. Now, Adam didn't authorize me to open level 4 locks, but yeehaw, fuck the law. Nobody tells me what I can or can't do. Gotta solve a bit of a morph ball puzzle first. I'm not gonna lie, this one kinda took me a second. With level 4 clearance, I can open every door in the game. The only downside is that I'm still missing the screw attack. I really wish that this zone was larger. I just found myself wanting more of it once I had to leave. There's plenty to explore here and a bunch of expansions too, like this missile tank that I just kind of stumbled across. One of the things that I noticed while playing this game is that there are lots of upgrades that aren't really all that difficult to find. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are just kind of out in the open. Yet another thing that Fusion does right is how it rewards the player for actually finding an item that was well hidden, and I think this one specifically is a perfect example. There is so much more incentive to explore when you don't necessarily have a schedule to adhere to. That's another reason why Fusion's final act is by far its best. Because nobody told me to come here. I made it here on my own. No one was breathing down my neck telling me that I needed to go here or do this. I'm just here, and it's wonderful. I finally feel like I'm off on my own, if you will, and really charting a path. That's always been one of the key ingredients to what made Metroid so great, because it relied completely on the player's willingness to explore and observe, learning how to navigate hostile environments with the equipment that they have at their disposal. It's just a shame that this segment of the game feels so fucking short. Now it's time to go talk to Adam again. I'm sure he's pissed. I mean, I really won't, but okay. Just send me to the mines already. I'm looking for a reason to blow this bitch up. So I'm back in NOC again. This time I'm headed to the Underzone because I got a security bot that needs a ass beating and a cutscene that needs watched. I gotta make a pit stop first, though.
Without authorization. Warning. No entry.
Nobody has a secret lab in the underbelly for no goddamn reason. I know for a fact that there's illegal shit back there. But anyway, about that boss, the security bot is back. He is still an absolute joke. Nothing has changed except that he fires these homing missiles that are painfully easy to shoot down, and now he can jump a little bit higher. Avoid his attacks, plug some missiles in the exposed core, and then violently murder his core X. And now you have the wave beam. Which means now it's time to bust into that secret lab. Oh my god. You motherfuckers! I knew you were doing illegal shit down here! So the Federation has been breeding Metroids. I am not surprised even in the slightest, since it is, after all, a government operation. Apparently I'm not the only one interested in this place, though. See, Adam told me that the SAX was tracking me, but I think he might have been lying about a few things, cause... You know, I'd love to stay for dinner, but I got a space station to blow up, so fuck you guys, I'm out. I can only imagine what Adam has to say about this. Apparently he's just been fucking lying to me this entire time. I'm sorry, is that a threat? Because that kind of sounds like a threat. So he informs you that the Metroids are the natural predators of the X, so essentially, if they would have just let the Metroids out when this all happened, there wouldn't be 10 SAX? What the fuck? So Adam tells me I need to leave the station. Believe me, I was thinking the same thing. I got something I gotta take care of first, though. Can confirm these space pirates are still dickheads and those energy blasters fucking hurt. Especially the gold-plated pirate. I hate those guys. They used to wreck my shit when I was a kid. There's an E-tank in here that's a bit of a pain to get, but it's totally worth it. I always forget that I have the diffusion missiles. God, that makes that so much easier. In the tradition of Metroid, the ending zone is considerably shorter than previous zones. There isn't really much to look for, and there isn't any reason to explore either. I'm sure that there was more items somewhere, but I wasn't really able to find them, and I was at that point where it just kind of didn't matter to me anymore, because the game is painfully easy, and I honestly just didn't need them. And the road to the last 3 bosses is pretty straightforward. There's not really anything to explore here. It's pretty much just kind of filler. The only reason you're down here is because of Ridley, and... this is literally the easiest boss in the game. Not even the Core X is a threat. Saying that I was let down is a gross understatement. I was extremely disappointed. But I mean, at least I get the screw attack out of this. It'll be fun to use for the last 5 minutes of the game. Time to stop on by the last nav room. Adam's got a bit of story exposition for me. So the Federation wants to try and capture SAX, huh? I can see that falling apart at the seams already. If I can't beat this thing, then who can? Adam was supposed to lock me in here to keep me from destroying the station and the SAX. They've been withholding weapons data from me too because they were concerned that I was getting too powerful. In essence, every single one of the people in charge of this operation are certifiably, unfucking deniably goat shit insane, and this is gonna end in shambles unless I do something about it. After Samus discovers that Adam is actually the consciousness of her old commanding officer from her Federation days who's basically just kind of been stuffed into a computer, he has a change of heart, if you will. He opens up the doors and tells me how to blow this place the fuck up. Lucky for the Federation, blowing shit up is something that I excel at. Let's crash this motherfucker into a planet. Oh, come on, what now? You. Alright, fine. You wanna go? Let's fucking go! I can do this all day! Jesus Christ, you're ugly! Like, you're not even a challenge, I just gotta feel bad for you. How's that for a fight, you weak piece of shit? Just die already! You motherfucker! Yeah, that's what I thought. You can dish out an ass whooping, but you can't take one. Fucking pussy.
Propulsion sequence activated. Destination, planet SR-388.
Well, that's my cue. I don't have this area memorized because I spent a total of 4 minutes up on the main deck over the course of this playthrough. Since, you know, the entire game basically takes place in the underbelly. I did finally manage to make it back to my ship, though. Time to get the fuck off this rock. Or at the very least, I thought I did. Where the fuck is my ship? Where the fuck is my... Jesus Christ! That's an Omega Metroid! So this is how it ends, huh? After all the battles, after all the monsters, I'm finally put in the dirt by an Omega Metroid. If that's not some cruel fucking irony, I don't know what is. However, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and SAX shows up at the 11th hour to save the day. Let me just... take that X really quick. Alright, Omega Metroid, now I just need you to fucking die! And just like that, Metroid Fusion is over. I'd wager to say that about 3/4 of this game is the player basically just answering Adam's every beck and call, but in retrospect, that guidance wasn't necessarily such a bad thing. I appreciate that this game has been trying to tell me a story as opposed to just placing me in a maze and expecting me to find my way out. Now, for the record, I 100% enjoy being stuck in a maze and expected to find my way out, but that is entirely aside the point. This was a different take on what a Metroid game could be. And as I said earlier, there is nothing wrong with a linear experience. I admire Fusion for that, even if it did feel a bit weird at first, having to read text and basically do what I'm told. It put a lot more emphasis on helping the player understand exactly what was happening around them instead of just doing what most Metroid games do, which is just expecting the player to figure everything out on their own. But even then, I can't help but feel like this game is missing something. Like I said at the beginning of this, I've always felt like Fusion didn't quite try hard enough. It's fantastic, yes, but it is so straightforward in its directing of the player. And it's just... You know what I think about Metroid Fusion? I think that this game is wonderful. I think it is beautifully atmospheric with gorgeous sprite work and wonderful world design that was held back a little by the lack of challenge. And the more that I think about that, the more I start leaning towards the idea that it was meant to be this way. Everything about this game points specifically to that. It guides you from point A to point Z. There are clear directions for upgrades and a surefire path forward at all times. The emphasis on story, the dialogue, the cutscenes, the level design, literally fucking everything implies that this is a Metroid title meant to be less of a challenge for the sake of bringing in a new generation of players. Designed from the ground up to ease them into the series, to get them accustomed to how these games functioned and immerse them in a world full of color and conflict, exploration and tension, depth and creative worlds filled with monsters and weapons. There is absolutely nothing not to love about this game, and I cannot in good faith criticize it for any of that. Even if I wanted to, and even if there was something to criticize, this entire game was still golden from start to finish. Regardless of whether or not the linearity put a weird taste in my mouth at first, this was near perfect. God damn, was it easy, though. From what I hear, you can actually play on hard mode if you have the Japanese version of the game. It's a fucking shame I can't speak weeb.